Good evening. I would like to welcome all of you to our webinar. Before we start the program, I would like to say a few words about the University of South Asia. Legendary ophthalmologist, politician, and philanthropist Professor M.A. Mateen is the founder of this university. His goal was to provide quality education at a very affordable cost. Our present chairman, Professor Dr. M.A. Mohit, is following the same motto. He is taking various steps to make quality education accessible to all classes of people. Since its establishment in 2003, University of South Asia had developed into a strong student community, over 100 faculty members, and a modern campus in Bonn. Now I would like to hand things over to our respected Dean, Irshad Ahmed Shaheen sir. As the moderator of the program, he will take the program forward. Before that, we will watch a video on our English department.
With the philosophy of inclusivity through education at an affordable cost, University of South Asia was established in 2003, and for 17 successful years, we have been academically nurturing the youth of Bangladesh. Our university is one of the handful of universities with UGC approval as well as Oxford graduate VC and Pro VC, who have been approved by the President of Bangladesh. Our Bachelor of Arts in English Literature and Culture program nurtures the students into young professionals with powerful communication and critical thinking skills who are extremely agile and adaptable in a plethora of work settings, as well as able to compete for top positions in the international job market. Comprising of highly experienced faculty members who possess international exposure and experience, account for over 35 years in teaching. Our Bachelor in English program imparts heavy emphasis on interactive learning alongside the provision of theoretical lessons, utilizing dynamic learning materials alongside a hands-on as well as critical thinking-based approach. Research, assignments, and regular presentations are an integral part of our curriculum, while countless workshops, seminars, and readings are scattered throughout the year. Furthermore, the Debating Society of University of South Asia, which is mentored by the Dean, School of Arts and Culture, has won accolades nationally as well as internationally and gives heavy emphasis on nurturing both debating as well as adjudication skills. We have two large campuses in Banani. One is nestled in greenery with 2 playing fields as well as a gym, and the other at the heart of corporate Banani. Our university boasts fully digitalized classrooms, whereas our library is maintained using digital software and is home to over 6,000 books. Whether you want to climb the corporate ladder in multinationals and banks, venture into entrepreneurship, join government service, become a journalist, enter the fast-paced world of PR, marketing and communication, work in embassies, or contribute to research and academia, our program has been especially designed for you.
Assalamu alaikum, and a very warm evening from Dhaka. I said warm because it was otherwise a very hot spell in the late summer, but incessant rain, heavy downpour brought it down to a little bit, the temperature a little bit. So it's warm now, humid but warm. So welcome all of you who are watching this webinar from different parts of the world, right across the world. So as you can see, our webinar is titled Literature During the Pandemic. Well, this is something very, very profound that we are going to handle today, profound and touching. But we decided to do it because this COVID-19 has been plaguing us for more than a year now, and we all know what this corona has done to us. Just taken more than 3.7 million of lives. It has shattered the economy. It has, in a way, dislocated our social life. And so many people have lost their jobs, and so many people are facing immense hardship. So, in a word, our total lifestyle is shattered, and we are seeing a world which we have never seen in a century. So this is probably a very remarkable time, very special time for the people connected with literature and art, all forms of art, all forms of art. So literature, who are the people creating and related to literature, connected with literature? Definitely, they are very sensitive. They are very profoundly empathetic. And of course, they are capable of great human feelings and sensitivity. So that is what we are going to deal with today. How much Corona has, COVID-19 has affected us, and how the people connected with literature, the critics, the novelists, the poets, and people connected with all branches of arts have reacted to this. And for that, we have very capable people here to discuss. We'll come to that later. Now, for a very brief introduction of the panel that we have here today, um, our chief guest here is our Honorable Vice Chancellor, uh, Professor M. Wadud Mondal, sir. He's the chief guest. He's a very remarkable personality. He'll be here anytime because he has been having some problems with his internet connections, but he will join us very soon. He has a very illustrious career. He did his master's uh, from Dhaka University, honors and masters, and then went on to Great Britain for his PhD. In his 70s, he's still as young as any one of our young colleagues. I mean, our very young faculty. He's a very interesting person with all the qualities of the leadership. And then we have our today's keynote speaker. I'm personally very proud to have him here. I think many people will be, because he's a person of very extraordinary accomplishments. In fact, his accomplishments are too many to be read out or spoken about here, but I'll speak some of them out right at the beginning of his speech, which is going to be in a couple of minutes. And then we have another speaker, another special guest in our webinar here, Ms. Sabera Sultana. Sabera Sultana is an associate professor at Dhaka Residential Model College. And I have, she is a very good teacher, very popular teacher of English. I think she'll appear on the screen anytime from now. And I have very fond memories of working with her at a very special kind of institution, Dhaka Residential Model College, at the heart of Dhaka city with 52 acres of land. I spent a long time there. So, and the final discussant in our panel will be Nusrat Jahan. She is a faculty at the department here, English department, in the English department, and that forms our today's panel. So now, before I call upon Mr. Professor Raj Kumar, Dr. Raj Kumar, I'd like to read out a relevant note on COVID-19 written by the famous actor and stand-up comedian. He said a few days ago, it struck me, it moved me. That's why I'll take this opportunity to read this out. We have a chance to do something extraordinary. As we head out of this pandemic, we can change the world, create a world of love, a world where we are kind to each other, a world where we are kind no matter what class, what race, what sexual orientation, what religion, or lack of what job we have. A world we don't judge those at the food bank because that maybe us if things are just a little different. Let love and kindness be our roadmap. So I'll just take a minute's break for the azan to be, the call to prayers to be over. So I'd like to come back to our program, our webinar. So I was talking about Mr. Uh, I was talking about Professor Dr. Raj Kumar, who is the professor and the head of the Department of English, Delhi University. His research areas include autobiographical studies, the literature, Indian writing in English, Odia literature that is, and post-colonial studies. Now, if you heard that, you will understand that he took the most unusual way. He didn't go with the mainstream. He didn't try to choose some easy to echo Frost, Robert Frost. He took the less traveled path, and that made all the difference. So, what difference it made? I told you if I am to go through the accomplishments that she had, it will take me almost half an hour, and almost all of you will be using it. So I'm not going to make that mistake. Rather, I'll tell you that he is the most outstanding researcher on Dalit literature, and Oxford University Press published his translation of Akila Naik's Veda, the first Oriya Dalit novel. And his book, Dalit Literature and Criticism, is published by another world famous publishing house, Orient Black Swan. And he is connected with hundreds, I have literally innumerable organizations. And, he was a fellow at the Indian Institute of Advanced Study in Shimla. He is connected with Social Action, Satirtha Bulletin, Shotirtha Bulletin, we pronounce it that way in Bangla, the Fourth World, Creative Forum, Language Forum, Jadavpur Journal of Comparative Literature, Indian Literature, Social Scientists, Journal of the School of Language, International and Cultural Studies, International Journal of Communication, Rama Devi Women University Journal of Social Sciences and many more. Really, I'll just run out of my breath. And what will happen? What will worsen thing is that we'll hear less of him, because I'd now like to usher in. I'd now like to request today's very special keynote speaker to deliver his keynote speech. Dr. Professor Raj Kumar. We are all proud and eagerly waiting to listen to him.
Yeah, good evening and thank you, Professor Irshad. That you called my day. Actually, that I'm really glad and very happy to have this warm welcome. I, in my humble way, that I could tell that I don't deserve so much, that that you have already spoken. Maybe that. So thank you so much. Respected the chief guest, Professor M.A. Mondal, today's special guest, Miss Sabera Sultana, of course, Professor Irshad Ahmed Shaheen, Dean, the Faculty of Arts, and Dr. Nusrat Jahan, and other colleagues of the University of South Asia, students and friends, those who are watching from every part, maybe that of the world. First of all, I would like to profusely thank Professor Irshad, who and his team, of course, who have invited me to this special occasion. I'm really glad, privileged, and honored to be with you. I'm excited as well as nervous. Excited because I'm trying to share my views with this august audience, but I'm also nervous because I do not know whether I will be able to deliver the intended ideas and thoughts chosen for this occasion, which is, the literature during the pandemic. As we all know, the topic is the literature during the pandemic. It is written on the board, actually, that you can see it. The topic is quite broad and very general. And as Professor Irshad has already, that announced that we have lost how many millions, that we never know how many families have been shattered. Uh, Children have been orphaned, people have lost their jobs, and then that innumerable, that we can go on and on. But then that I will try to take maybe that to a very different spectrum, because the broad idea is the role of literature during the pandemic, not pandemic per se. Um, so given a time framework, because that I have been given maybe the 20-25 minutes, I'll try to speak out the way the role of literature is imminent, particularly during the pandemic. Of course, literature is always there, but then what could be the role of literature that we can foresee as students of literature? Now, the recent pandemic, as that we all know, and we are part of it, we have experienced it, if not, that directly being affected, at least, that we have visualized it, within it, we have thought about the way people have been actually, um, being part of this pandemic. Now, it is a big havoc among humans, and also animals and birds and many other species have been affected by this pandemic. That this is going on for more than a year or so. So it has caused several deaths, several millions deaths, innumerable deaths. Maybe that there is no proper statistic how many people have died. And it has not spared anyone. Please try to understand. Maybe that though the rich and the privileged have maybe that at some point of time they might have that taken medical care, and maybe that sometimes you find the rich they could afford to save their life. It is the poor who actually always suffer, and children and particularly women in the pandemic. But I would try to that tell you that it has not spared anyone, particularly that what I can see, whether rich or poor, men or women, young or old, Hindu or Muslim. So, that irrespective of maybe, that caste, class, gender, religion, nationalism, maybe, that you go across the, that world, and you find as if the pandemic is a kind of, that equalizer. In the sense that, that it is humanity that matters, not the distinction that we create unnecessarily being human being. Now, that while we can measure death in terms of data and statistic, because sometimes, that we find report that this many people died today, this many positive cases, we cannot measure the human suffering, be it moral, psychological, or emotional, apart from physical. So it is not just physical suffering. That people are not just dying. People, those who are dying, what about their relatives, friends, neighbors? What could be the emotional state of theirs? What could be the psychological effect of, that the idea of death, longing and belonging to a life that is out of maybe, the danger. So all these cannot be given in data. And therefore, it is at this critical juncture, the role of literature is crucial, very, very crucial. Taking human knowledge and memory into account, I will argue in my lecture that it is only through literature that we can clearly gauge and also judge the pandemic situation and prepare ourselves better to encounter the pandemic in the future. Because many of you might know I'm not a scientist, but then we have been listening to news that once there is virus, coronavirus, it will not go. So it will stay forever. What is very important is how to prepare ourselves. And it is for that matter that our knowledge and memory will take us into the future. So let me begin my lecture. The pandemic due to coronavirus 19, which we are encountering now, has thrown several challenges to us. Actually, there are too many challenges, be it economic, social, cultural, medical, as well as ecological. If I talk about one single thing, then it will take me, that entire day. Say the idea of economy. Every nation, every country that you find, that GDP, that getting maybe inflection is, that becoming minus, and that GDP has gone down to the level whereby that our economic resources have fallen down to pieces. Look at our social relationship. That new taboos have come. That because my specialization is Dalit literature, I'm using a word new untouchability. That what to touch and what not to touch. For example, the purity and pollution, the idea. So at social level, for example, the idea of physical touch, and that is that whether you touch a human body who is being affected by coronavirus, how many times you have to wash your hand. Maybe that as doctors have been prescribing, that 6 times minimum, that, and for 10 or 20 seconds. But who can wash one's hand? That is the question. That how many of us we have pipe water throughout the day. No, all these are that question that maybe that we can try to think about. At medical level, that we have fallen short. That there were no oxygen available, there were no hospitals available, there are no beds, for example. Or that a patient looking for a hospital bed has tried to, travel how many kilometers to get a bed. So medical and then finally ecological. Are we bother actually about our environment that we have created or destroyed over the years? I'm talking about it is not just 1 day or 2 days, but over the century. So each one topic, that if we can try to deliver it, and today is not my, that maybe, that focus, you can, I'm just giving you to think about, so that if there are questions, we'll be able to answer it. So there are innumerable challenges that the corona has thrown out to us to think about, decide about the future of our humanity. So what matters first is humanity. As that I'm very happy that that Professor Irshad has already made a point, love and kindness to be our future roadmap. That is very nice. So what could be the that role of the, maybe that literature to save humanity from this that dangerous propensities? It is dangerous time, not just difficult, the dangerous time. Anytime, anything can happen to anyone. There is no, that the great thing that we have gathered today at this time, that is great thing. That whether it is, that India or Bangladesh, that the whole idea of meeting together and then talking and listening, that itself is a great thing that we have perhaps, that done today. So thank you so much. Now, that I just want to take you back to history of mankind, if you permit me, because this is not the one pandemic that has caused devastation so much to the humankind. So quickly, maybe, that there are several instances in the past that humanity across the globe was in similar circumstances due to the pandemics. Maybe the forms were very different. Say, I'm sure that you have heard about Black Death or the Great Flu or the plague or the Great Famine, which followed by several kinds of human crises in the past. But every time there is a pandemic, human race has survived to tell the tale of human sufferings, of course, through literature. And that's where the role of literature is very, very important. Let me give you a few instances from the past whereby we have survived the pandemic, different kinds of pandemic. So this is not the one, maybe, that the young generation should know, or they might know, of course, that through reading literature. So I just like to touch upon few literary pieces. A pandemic commonly known as the Black Death devastated Asia, Europe, and North America between 1347 to 1351, 14th century. And Giovanni Boccaccio's remarkable, that work, the Decameron, which was published in 1353, documents how the 14th century Florence was affected by the Black Death. So this is perhaps the first instance in which a documentation has been made on the pandemic. Daniel Defoe's a Journal of the Plague Year, which was published in 1722, gives a literary and historical account of the bubonic plague in the 17th century London. Jack London is the name of the author, not the place, that please pardon me for this. Jack London, The Scarlet Plague, which was published in 1912 at the beginning of the 20th century, is about the Red Death. That today you must be listening, coronavirus is not just coronavirus, but also there are black fungus and also now white and then yellow. Look at, that how many different kinds of death. It is not just Black Death, there is also Red Death. So Jack London's The Scarlet Plague, which was published way back in 1912, is about the Red Death. that depopulated and nearly destroyed the world. And the writer imagines actually 20th year, whereby that this Red Death would come to the earth and then try to that kill the humanity. What about that many of you must have read, I'm sure that Albert Camus, the famous The Plague, which was published in 1947 when India got freedom, is about the plague in French ruled Algeria after World War II. Gabriel Garcia Marquez, that Love in the Time of Cholera, which was published in 1985, is yet another documentary, that novel that talks about, of course, not just disease, but also love and passion. Yeah, love, passion, and disease. So the list can go on and on. I don't want to bore you because I've been told, that we should try to focus on the role of literature instead of maybe, that going through a piece of literary maybe text in great detail, so that that time is being at least that uh, utilized properly. So the list can go on and on. I can give you any number of text that documents pandemic, including the recent pandemic. That we have a Dalit novel. This is I just want to announce that we are going to have a book of maybe the discussion event on 12th of this month on a book titled Delhi, that is Delhi, the Dead City. This is written by Vasudev Sunani, another Odia Dalit writer. And he has depicted Delhi as the city of dead. This is, that again documentation that he has made for last 1 year. And the book is, talks about how Dalits have been, a part of the recent pandemic in a way that they cannot think about their home or survival, and that different strategy they have to, that act. So, in the Indian context, apart from Vasudev Sunani, of course, there are writers like Rabindranath Tagore, Premchand, Fakir Mohan Senapati, Thakaji Sivasankar Pillai, Kannu Charan Mohanty. That there are innumerable writers and poets and storytellers who talk about the different pandemics. But that, as I have already suggested, that I will not go by literary text or the writer. If there are questions, I will be happy to answer. As we all know, pandemics, all kinds of pandemics, just corona, are killers and mass murderers. And what happens, the diseases like plague, smallpox, influenza, and cholera ruin families, destroy towns and cities, and leave generation scar and scare. Devastation caused by the outbreaks have long impact on humankind. It is here that the role of literature looks pertinent. Literature, which is including Bangla, because that I'm reminded of that Tagore's idea of Sonar Bangla, yeah, Amar Sonar Bangla. That he also has a definition of literature, which is called Sahitya. I'm sure that all of you could understand the term Sahitya. That I am from Odisha, and we use the word Sahitya. So Bangla, Odia, Ahomia, Hindi also, that Sahitya. So many of us who term literature as Sahitya, and this, that this word has to be properly defined in the context of pandemic. I'm doing this not that that you don't know, but I'm just bringing into the context whereby Sahitya meaning, that we have to define this word Sahita, which could be translated into English as being with. If I can, that translate my own, being with, which is quite important and significant. Significant because it reminds about the role of literature, which means interconnectedness. To being with is to also be reminded of interconnectedness. This interconnectedness is to be further understood in the context. Of course, there could be several definitions of literature, as we all know. Interconnectedness is to be understood as what I understand, that this is my version, of course, that for today's lecture, to be with others. So, to be with others during the period of crisis. Sahita, to be with others during the period of crisis. Now, if I can quote a world-renowned literary critic, Gayatri Spivak Chakrabarti, in another context, she talks about to be human is to intend to others. If we are human being, to be human is to intend to others. This is, the death of a discipline, of course, that happens. This intendedness is to imply, if I understand Gayatri Spivak Chakrabarti, yoking to humanity to the world. So if that people of India are suffering, it is not just they are suffering alone. If people of Bangladesh are suffering, it is not just Bangladesh, or America suffering, it is not just America, because the world is interconnected. And that's where the whole idea of literature, particularly, unlike social sciences or hard sciences, literature tries to bridge the gap between, that human feelings, human emotion, human expression. And that's why, that I quote Gayatri Spivak Chakrabarti in the context of yoking to humanity to the world. It is so nice that, that University of South Asia, which belongs to Bangladesh, that has invited me to speak on the pandemic and the role of literature. And that is, that what this is called, that interconnectedness. And of course, that yoking to humanity to the world, Gayatri Spivak has used the term planetarity. The planet, that is not just either, that belong to you or me or others, to the whole humanity. It is in this context that I would like to conclude my lecture. So short, of course, that because I thought maybe should not bore you. And I conclude my lecture with a quote from Camus, The Plague, says, all a man could win in the conflict between plague and life was knowledge and memories. I read it again, repeat, Camus' The Plague. All a man could win in the conflict was knowledge and memories. Let us carry on our knowledge and memories. And of course, that what Professor Irshad has emphasized on love and kindness, so that we can fight against the pandemics of any kind. It is not just Corona, but also, that whatever pandemic comes in the future, it is only through knowledge and memory, because, that the role of literature is not just to reflect, also document every sphere of life, so that the future generation can read and come to realize what could be the role of humanity. Right. So, that let's try to, that carry on our knowledge, and knowledge is not limited to the present day Corona, actually. Yeah. And memories, of course, it's, as we all know, human memory is short, so we have to document things. And that's why writing literature is very important. So let's carry on our knowledge and memory to fight against the pandemic, so that the humanity at large wins the race. And I'm sure, that we'll also win the race. Thank you all for your patient listening. I'll be happy if there are questions. to my lecture. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Irshad and others. I'm done.
That's gratefulness due to the way you analyzed pandemic and the way you you have thrown light on the way these people of literature, I mean, novelists, dramatists, poets, they have reacted to and they have shown their compassion to the suffering humanity. Now, there's so many things in your lecture that really touched my heart. One thing, the term that you coined in neo-untouchability. Oh my goodness. It can only come from the heart and lips of a human being who has gone deep into the sufferings of humankind. Because, these pandemics, as you were saying, we have at least 23 or 24 epidemics and pandemics since the Greek time, maybe more than that. Those have come and gone. But have we changed? Has the human race changed? Unfortunately, not. It's the same avarice. It's the same jealousy. It's the same preponderating tendency. It's the same dominationism that is eating into the vitals of the human race. To me, to my mind, it's a great, great eye opener for those of us who believe in the Creator. Well, isn't that enough of an indicator? Isn't that poking the finger into the eyes and making us look into the reality of things? Where did the much vaunted medical care of Europe go? What happened to the much vaunted medical care system of America, China? They were in shambles. They were all gone. They were in tatters. Why? Because people weren't changing. People don't change in richness, in opulence, in development. They don't change in, pandemics or sufferings. Just to tell you a very sad story. What I feel is that what I see in people around me is that, well, once this pandemic goes away, we'll be jumping into the playground. What playground? Playground of tripping others, making others small, exploiting others, and of course, elbowing others out of the way. As Professor Raj Kumar rightly said, neo-untouchability. We know of Dalits. We know of normal Shudras who were not to be touched. If they came in contact with gentlemanly upper caste people, they were defiled. They were rendered impure. So, what about today? Today, we are not able to touch one another, embrace one another. We are socially distanced. We are segregated. We are isolated. So that is a very big symbol. We are no longer one. We are no longer trying to be one. The human race is falling apart. Sir was quoting Camus and many other novelists and poets the message is the same. Love and compassion has to rule supreme. If we think of the, what we call modernism, what happened? What did the First World War do to us? Well, where did the money of the First World War come to the pockets of the European governments? The statement. It was the industrial growth, the industrialization, and they spent it for subduing others. And still we have that very problem. That very problem. And that has created the net, the wave of existential uncertainty. That is why existentialism is so true even today. So, Professor Raj Kumar was saying that he would like to answer questions. I would like to put a couple of very humble questions to him, because he took the less traveled road, and that made all the difference. Yes, I think we all understand students of literature. My question to him is that, sir, do you think this civilization is really going to change even a fig after this pandemic is over, if it is going to be over? I'm not a pessimist. I'm always an optimist. But the indications are very poor, isn't it? They are quarreling over International Property Act. They are not even ready now, even now, to let the intellectual property rights go for vaccination, and so many, so many unkind, so many cruel pictures you can see all over the world. Has the people of the world come forward, the rich people of the world, the middle class of the world, the upper middle class of the world, to do something for the really poor people who lost their, small capitals and really were swept away as the rubbish do in the flood waters? Have they really come forward? Has any awakening been created in them? Unfortunately, as I find in people around me, it hasn't. Still, I'm not a pessimist. As I read out that quote from Johnny Cohn right at the beginning, it's love and compassion that can save this race, this humanity. As the T.S. Eliot said in his Wasteland. Now, sir, my question is, do you see indications that, well, it's true that when India was in dire shortage of oxygen, many help, a lot of help came from many other countries. But overall, these are cosmetic things. So, do you see any real change caused by this COVID-19, sir? That is my question. Would I put my question across to Professor Raj Kumar? Dr. Raj Kumar, did you get my question? I don't know what is going on.
Hello, can you
Sir,
hear
did you
me?
hear?
Yeah. I could hear you.
Well, sir, please. Sorry for the sentiment I was expressing. But
No. You are very right. You know that. So you asked me whether there is any kind of civilizational change. That due to this pandemic, I would say that that the pandemic has taught us two things. That one has to that be prepared for any kind of uncertainty in the future, because so whether it is individual, community, country, or at the the global level. So there are changes definitely, because that we were unprepared. That I'm talking about every country for that matter. Be it America, as you very rightly say, be it that Europe, or be it Asia, any country for that matter. So since we were unprepared, the first pandemic actually caused havoc. So now, that people have now thought about, say, the idea of doing some, maybe, the research on the medical front, or the way, that how, that different kind of strategy. It is not just medical, also, the psychological, moral, ethical, and also, that economic. So I think, that pandemic has really taught us how to think about, at least in the future, such thing happen, maybe, that to do our best the way, that we fail to do. But as you very rightly say, that we can see two things. One, the kind of cruelties, barbaric, maybe, that kinds of action that, whether it is, that in the neighborhood, in the hospital, in the country at large, that you can see. At the same time, there were also, that good people, good Samaritan, who came forward to help, maybe, that the poor, the underprivileged, the, that migrant laborers, at the behest of maybe, that sacrificing their life. That I remember about the story of a young man who passed away, who was a student of St. Stephen, Delhi University, 18 years old, that he was first year history student. Yet, that before his passing away, he did not realize that he got corona, the virus, because he was running from pillar to post to provide oxygen to the, the corona patient, and he finally succumbed to his, maybe, that positive, that virus. So I can give you any number of instances. There were both positive and negative, that examples, whereby there were some who could come and help. There were also some who could make money, that they charge oxygen cylinder maybe 10 or 20 times. They also charge medicine. I'm sure, that there is a big racket selling, maybe, that many of the, the goods relating to maybe corona. So I fully agree with you. But I see, that both positive as well as negative picture. And even if suppose, that the positive is very minor fraction, even if it is, that 1%, that itself is a hope for mankind. Because, that you must have read apocalyptic, the writings and novels and kind of thing. It talks about that only good things will prevail, the bad things will go, definitely, that. So I'm very hopeful. I'm a very optimistic person, that in spite of negativities, we can try to give that maybe cite example from the positive aspect of maybe some of this development. Maybe, that we'll try to learn our flaws and try to rectify those flaws, so that in the future we can make the wrong right. And that is perhaps the role of literature also, because literature will definitely bring sensitivity among the people across the world I'm talking about. So thank you for that at least that trying to set the question. I'm sure that there will be civilizational changes, even if it is that fraction that we can that imagine or think about. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your wonderful answer. And you rightly said that, well, this was yes and no, the answer. Yes. So you said 1%. Yes, my hats off to them. Those medical workers, those doctors, those nurses who risked their lives and really took this as a challenge and stood by humanity. The young man that you were talking about, who can be a greater martyr than him, that 18-year-old or that young man from Delhi. I don't know what
Mm.
his name you said. I forgot that. But what
Yeah.
better example can be there of humanity? Yes, light is there. But
Mm.
in this gloom, this fall of gloom, the stars, the teachers say, too soon, too small in number. Yes, sir. I believe. I'm very positive. I believe in positivism. Things will change for the better. If not here, it's multiverse here, somewhere else. Who knows? So, sir, deep, deep, deep sympathy and my gratitude for those who really work to make the life of the corona victims better and who try to take care of the small business, who try to uh, take care of the deceased corona victims, families, and all that. Yes, there have been myriad pictures of kindness and humanitarian, but should have been far, far more because so many people died without treatment, so many people died without care. My hats off to those who helped the burials and cremations and all that, risking their lives. My hats off to people who help the victims and their families in so many ways. But for the next time, this civilization has to react in a better way because we have had epidemics before. We have had pandemics before. Did we learn? We didn't. And are we going to learn this time? Hopefully, yes. But there are anxieties. Is that going to happen? So thank you, Professor Dr. Raj Kumar, and how immensely rich did you make us? How enlightened we have been from your lecture. So we are going to listen to our next discussant and another guest in the form of Sabera Sultana. Is she available now?
Thank you, Professor Irshad, for your kind words.
So I'll be coming back to you. I'm not going to let you go so soon. But Sabera Sultana, are you? Is she going to be? Is she going to appear? I'd like to ask the people at the back end. Is Sabera Sultana there? I'd be more than happy if I'm told, is Miss Sabera Sultana available? It's a standstill. Can I know if who is the next speaker? If Sabera Sultana is not there, Nusrat Jahan can start her lecture.
Thank you, sir. So it was really lovely to listen to the lecture um, by Professor Raj. It just took me back to my literature classes. And when he was talking about the social classifications and how corona is also like relating us and taking us back to the core of those things, and it's like a symbolism of our existence. So it was really lovely to listen to his lecture. So, but it is really nice to see how literature is actually helping us to survive in our toughest times, and it's still generating hope. So even if we're living in a post-colonial era, and we still have we're this generation who have this existential crisis, and still we are going back to literature to find the answers that we are looking for, to find the inspiration that we need. So I think this is why literature, the appeal of literature is, um, you know, tremendous, and we can never overlook it, or we can never forget or say that we don't need literature. So, if I may, can I ask a question to Professor Dr. Raj Kumar?
Please, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Sir, my question to you would be, as I have already mentioned to you, that we are the generation, we are often having this kind of like existential crisis, and we are the generation who is almost like feeling the post-colonial vibes. So, of course, we are, maybe we get pessimistic like very easily. I mean, of course, we try to find the answer through literature, but what would be your um, suggestions to the students, that how can they overcome this struggle, these barriers, and how can they find answers for themselves through literature?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So thank you, Dr. Nusrat, for your maybe that again the that the way you express that I'm happy that maybe that I could maybe I could make some maybe that intervention in the area of that the literature and the pandemic. I
Yes,
have two things to tell. That as you very rightly say that today's generation, that you talk
exactly.
about post-colonial generation.
Yes, sir.
Definitely, that yeah, the that um, the idea of that getting maybe say things from maybe either the state or the government or maybe that the that world are definitely very different in the sense that that we need perhaps that say small little things in life, like that if we are suffering from physical ailment, then definitely we need medicine. If we are if we have say that finish our education, that we need to that apply for a job and get maybe
Exactly.
that a permanent job, that small little things, that these are perhaps that the aims of life. And today's generation is as we all know, impatient, no?
Yes,
Impatient in
yes.
the sense that that I'm not using in negative way, but
I can
that
get that.
we can't
Yes,
wait and watch. That we need
we
maybe
just need to
that.
move on and do a lot of
So
stuff like
right, yeah. So maybe that I have two or three things to tell about the today's generation. That what is immediate is of course that is lovable, and that is the need of the hour. But that it is very important, and the young generation also gets connected to the society and the country at large. That what is very important here, I can quote, there is a Brazilian philosopher called Paulo Freire. I'm sure that people have read. His
that.
first book is called Pedagogy of the Oppressed, and the last book is Critical Consciousness, where he talks about how education is not just for getting a job. That he uses the word banking knowledge, that the more you keep in your bank account, you can withdraw more. But education is just like banking, that in the sense that knowledge is not merely what is called theoretical. I am serious here, and that
Yeah.
because I'll be also talking about theoretical and philosophical approaches to education and literature.
Mhm.
So and sorry to that bother you too much, maybe that about bringing the idea of philosophy, but philosophy also is not just theoretical. What Paulo Freire talks about is praxis. He uses the term action, that based on ideas, how ideas are to be practiced into action. So, that I would definitely request the young generation, yes, getting a job is very important because that is survival strategy. No, that is the way, that life has to be made and meant for. But then, that we sometimes get seduced by, that very idea of, that say material without bothering about what is called moral and ethical. So what Paulo Freire talks about, education would definitely bring what he calls critical consciousness, whereby as a person, say I, as a person, I have to think about that, see, if I have come off to this level, I have become a professor, that I never intended to become a professor, maybe, that this is by accident. But if I have become, then it is also my duty to pay back to the society, because I am being made by a society at large. It is not just my parents or my relative who have funded me, that for my education. The state has funded definitely. I am sure that your advertisement is writing up to 100% tuition fee and flat 50% admission fee waiver. So students are getting definitely, that benefits of being part of a larger society. So my request to the young generation is that if we have settled down in life, we should not forget about the social role to be played. So shall I ask, that one or two questions? These are questions not to be answered necessarily, that what role I have to play in society, because society is large, that I'm not just saying, we have been talking, both Professor Irshad and me, we have been talking about that I'm not alone in this world. There are lots and lots of people that I should get connected. It is, the by chance that I'm now getting connected to Bangladesh, say. What a nice thing, that. So whether the young generation has now, the time to think, pause and think, because sometimes we don't pause also, no?
Yes.
Robert Frost, that as Professor Irshad has suggested, that we have no time to, that,
Stand and
that stand and
stand and
stare.
Exactly.
Stare, that we have to stand and stare to others, my surrounding, what is happening. So I can, that simply request the young generation, be the young generation of India, Bangladesh, Europe, America, wherever, that they belong to, because there is a tendency that the young generation is getting not only, that away from social role, the societal role, not social role, but societal role, that. So whether we can think, pause, and that decide about to pay little, maybe, that because society has made me what I am. I'm just not, that making of my parents alone, that I just don't belong to one family only, that the world is my family, no? In Sanskrit sloka, we have Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the whole world is my family. So if I can think about in this motto, whether I have a role to be played. If suppose I think this question, then what role I can play? It is perhaps during this pandemic that immediately I can think about. And the example that I gave, 18 years old, that young, intelligent man, not, that digesting from taking a larger responsibility, risking his life. Yeah. We don't want all young men and women to risk their life, but I'm talking about whether we can pay little back to our society, whatever role, that whether we are professor, whether we are doctor, engineer, even, that a shoemaker, that tea shop owner, whatever. I'm not talking about those who are privileged. I think that there were examples during pandemic that a tea shop owner, uh, whatever suppose that little capital he had, he actually donated everything to buy that to procure medical equipments, small little maybe that it may not be large. So that is what that what is called humanity. So Paulo Freire talks about that education would definitely bring job and that a good perk, money, etc., etc. That is not important. Material thing is not very important, because materials we have by any means, that we have to survive. See, even if I'm a poor person, I'll try to survive, that the way I'll try to maybe that work hard. But the important question is whether there will be some moral responsibility that I belong to a state or a society or a country or a world. What role I have to that play in this larger world? That is perhaps that is very important question. As so I will finally quote that, so it is not just philosophy, it is also praxis. No, philosophy is not just abstract, because I remember Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who is considered to be the father of Indian Constitution, talks about, and very rightly, that philosophers have come and gone. Philosophers have come and gone. The challenge is how to change the world. The challenge is how to change the world. So whether we could be a small, maybe that contributor to change the world. Small, it may not be big, that. So that is what that my sincere maybe that request to the young generation. Yeah, Nusrat.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for your answer. I am sure that our students will be inspired hearing your answer, and they will be motivated to know more about this view. So thank you, sir, for taking time to answer my question. Thank you.
So that's the end of your lecture, Nusrat. Are you going to carry on, or is that the end of?
Sir, I don't have anything more to say.
Oh, I see.
Any
So,
any question? Any question from the audience? Maybe we can think about.
well, one thing is that a couple of students were just rang me up, and they're so awestruck, sir. They're so renewed, they're so charmed by the depth of your knowledge that they find
Oh.
they uh, really are too timid to ask you any question. But sir, I have one more question, if you permit me
Okay,
to ask.
please.
As you were beautifully, sir, meandering in answer to Nusrat Jahan and touching a bit of philosophy in the process. So I have just one short question, sir, to you. We all know the reasons how why modernism set in, came, and then postmodernism, and now postmodernism is being held in abeyance for quite a while, and something new is awaited. So, do you think this pandemic is going to uh, trigger some change in the philosophical frame of mind? Why is that? Is postmodernism now going to give way to something new, very concrete and solid? And is that going to be a combination of all the good and bad things that we have had, a sort of sifting of those, training of those, and something new, starting from Stoicism to hedonism, and then uh, Schopenhauer, Nietzsche, Kant, and then existentialism, modernism, postmodernism, and not to speak of Dadaism and nihilism and all that. So, do you think something new is going to emerge? Is something going to be triggered by?
Yeah, I think so. That what we that maybe this will be the conclusion, because that your organizer is perhaps reminding the time. It is 1 hour 15 minutes, and please conclude. So maybe this is the conclusion. That I think that new things, particularly in the philosophical and literary, of course, literature. There are plenty of literary texts have come out, that during pandemic and after. There are also many journals, and that people are venturing into many kind of creative as well as critical, that issues relating to. So I'm sure that at the philosophical level, I think that I am hopeful, that something new will come out. But in the meantime, that Professor Irshad, I can, that if I can touch upon this point, that after postmodernism, we are now using the word past postmodernism. That past
And sir,
postmodern.
exactly. And so that is in a way people say that is the other way of holding postmodernism in abeyance. That is very
Right. Yeah. And also, the post-human, that what is called, several words we are, that trying to use it. But I'm sure, that your question that suggests that at this juncture, we are also looking perhaps, that forward to a new, not only, that philosophical and theoretical approaches, but also new outlook to map the world, to map the human world. Maybe that of course we know that birds and other species are also being affected, because the entire ecology that is also part of this that death of ecology. So I'm sure that from the varieties that what we come to know, it is not just history, literature, also philosophy will emerge, so that we are that particularly tuned to know the world in a new way. So I'm hopeful, that something new will emerge definitely. So
yes, sir. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you very much. And how beautifully
Yeah.
said that look at the whole thing in a new way. Something new will emerge. That is the positive side of things. And I'd like to confirm with the backend people if this is going to is he able to turn up? Is he able to show up? Is the internet connection okay? And what about Sabera, madam? And if that they are available, we can hear the valuable speeches. Hello? Hello, I need to be told from the back end. Particularly, is Visisa available? Has he been connected? Please, madam. I have to get a message officially. Madam, have you had any news about this? Madam?
Sir, I think it's better to conclude because both of them are offline. I think they're having internet issues, so I think it's better we conclude the program here.
But I need to get that from the horse's mouth, from the back-end people.
Yes, sir, they have confirmed that, they are not here yet. They're not in the studio yet.
All right, then we have been having internet issues. So neither our special guest in the person of Sabera Sultana and nor our center of attraction of today's webinar, Vice Chancellor Sir Professor M. Wadud Mondal will be available. So we can call it a day, but not before I, on behalf of University of South Asia and the people of Dhaka and of course the people, the whole population of Bangladesh, I mean from on behalf of Bangladesh itself, I would like to thank and express our gratitude to Professor Dr. Raj Kumar for enlightening us in such a wonderful way. We'll remember this lecture for a long, long time, and this will be available on the YouTube, so people will be watching this. And what a wonderful evening it has been. So, thanks to Professor Raj Kumar, gratitude to him and to the people of India. So please convey our gratitude to the people of India, sir.
Nane, thank you all. That first Professor Irshad, of course, Professor, that Nusrat, and that many others. I really, that I like the we, that we are, talking about and engage in a kind of issue. So it was my pleasure and privilege, as I told you. So thank you all. That for having given me an opportunity to interact with you. It was a really nice interaction, a kind of memorable, that. So I will also not forget. I'm sure, that we'll try to interact, that keep on interacting in the future. So thank you all.
Yes, sir. And to use your wonderfully coined word, phraseology, the new untouchables. But
Okay.
we will overcome that. We'll overcome that, and we'll touch it. We have already touched each other's hearts, one
Yeah.
another's hearts, and we'll
Right.
continue to do that. And not
Yeah.
only hearts, but also physically. So thank you
Right.
all.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Professor Raj Kumar, and
Thank you.
thanks to the people at the back end. Thanks to Nusrat Jahan. Thanks to Sabera Sultana, in spite of the fact that she couldn't come in. That is a technical thing. That's different. And big thanks and gratitude to VC sir. He tried his best till the last moment, but couldn't make it. And of course, our heartfelt thanks and gratitude to the back end people who put in a lot of endeavor and efforts to make this program a success. And thanks to everyone, including the chairman board of trustees of this university, who delivered a message to me, encouraging me to go ahead with. He said that it's wonderful to see you inviting such a high-profile keynote speaker. I needed to communicate this to Professor Dr. Raj Kumar and to all others of the University of South Asia family, to the people of Bangladesh and the people of India. So let's call it a day. We end our program. Thank you very much.